we move on here. Again, my name is Ken Driscoll. I'm a civil application consultant with Applied Software. Um, what's new in Civil 3D? So there's a couple things, and of course, Alyssa has already talked about who I am. This is just a little background. So one of the things that we like to value is your opinion and questions about the software at the end of the webcast, because we want to try and address any issues or concerns that you have using any of the products along the AEC collection and also with Civil 3D. Anything under the umbrella of civil infrastructure, we can basically address. So the first thing is I want to talk about the direction that Autodesk is going in reference to some of the things under the umbrella of civil infrastructure. So under transportation with roads and highways, BIM and GIS connected workflows, road rehab, civil structures, and collaboration with roads and highways. And then also if you're under the discipline of airports, similarly, BIM to GIS connected workflows and expanding BIM practices with civil, including buildings. And then under rail, for those who may be private or government in terms of rail, new rail and track design features with Civil 3D, Dynamo for Civil 3D, and then also civil structures and BIM to GIS connected workflows. And then under land and water for site development, specifically gravity pipe networks, surface integration with Revit, and then BIM to GIS connected workflows. And again, pressure pipes would be something that you would utilize with the new 2020.1 update on your Autodesk accounts, manage accounts update. And then there has been a commitment also to water and wastewater in reference to Plant 3D and PNID, and also within Revit. And then clearly what has been a big thing with Autodesk is the Esri partnership. So the idea of bringing BIM and GIS together, where you can have access to ArcGIS online, save back GIS data coming from ArcGIS back to Civil 3D and InfraWorks, and also Map 3D. And then now clearly being able to read and write and publish layers back to ArcGIS online. So you have a seamless, direct, live link from Civil 3D to ArcGIS online, and also with InfraWorks. So Civil 3D. Civil 3D kind of supports the idea of BIM information modeling with integrated features kind of to decrease inefficiencies and automate construction documentation with project delivery. So there's some kind of things in terms of, the messaging that we're putting out in terms of collaboration and sharing, and then also not only from construction, but to civil infrastructure and to production. Also, the big thing in Civil 3D that a lot of users have inquired about was the idea of Dynamo. And here's a quote from a current customer in reference to how Dynamo allows a client to be more flexible in terms of quick solutions and adoption. With Dynamo, you can use Dynamo with corridor modeling, also bridge. It's simply the next level in terms of scripting geometry as a whole. We'll take a look at Dynamo in action shortly. And then some of the big advantages are really compared to what Auto lists in terms of manipulating both with the API, and it's quicker and faster. So one of the first things that you want to take a look at of what's new in Civil 3D is Dynamo for Civil 3D, storm and sanitary analysis enhancements, also gravity network enhancements. So clearly you have straight out of the box from Civil 3D. You have storm and sanitary analysis. You have the hydroflow extensions, which allows you hydrographs, storm sewers, and hydroflow express, which is a culvert calculator. And then also gravity network enhancements. There's also the idea of how the screen looks in terms of an interface update. And then I also made reference to rail improvements. There's also survey database format migration from the previous versions of those who may be using the survey database, and then being able to export out a Civil 3D drawing without rework. And reference templates, we'll also take a look at that. And then one of the big things, of course, again, is the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS. And we'll move back here. I kind of skipped. So from that, of what's new in Civil 3D, Dynamo for Civil 3D. So it's just really visual programming tools that allow Dynamo scripting in reference to Civil 3D. And from that, engineers, designers who do repetitive processes in design workflows. So Dynamo gives civil engineers the ability to visually script behavior to find custom pieces. Also, Autodesk has a commitment to Civil 3D specifically for those who use Dynamo in reference to design automation capabilities. Okay, so as an example, just to kind of take a look at Dynamo, because for the most part, again, Dynamo for Civil 3D. Then there's also, excuse me, new storm and sanitary analysis enhancements. Clearly, one of the big things that has run about with storm and sanitary analysis is the idea of being able to separately give stormwater, tailwater conditions for multiple storm events. Also, with peak rate factor, we have dimensionless hydrographs set per subbasin. And then also new storage chambers for ADS and GRAITEC are available now in terms of storm and sanitary enhancements. Typically, civil engineers who are performing hydraulic and hydraulic studies are using hydroflow extensions and storm and sanitary analysis. SSA offers really greater control of more advanced conditions that you would be using for specific design criteria and standards. So customers now really can change, again, tailwater calculations and set repeat rate factors based upon ground cover for individual subbasins. From that, if we just jump back one, and most of what you will see also will be performed So again, storm and sanitary analysis, it's just some differences. Clearly, I'm using the pressure pipes in Civil 3D has some challenges to it, but the wizard for the analyzed network, now gives you that flexibility in terms of pipe sizing, using the hydraulic grade line and energy grade line, and also with performance with your analysis. Clearly, one of the big things with the inlets with hydroflow and gravity networks is the latest FHWA HEC 22 factors in addition. So that's important because the gravity networks of the design panel analyze network details that address errors that's displayed within and beneath the button that will also allow you to perform the calculations that display the results. From that, with pipe networks, so working with the new interface, the ribbon background color, it's typically now a dark blue. And if you wanted to change that, you clearly could change that by going into the options panel and changing the display of the ribbon. For those, light screens work better, darker screens work better for some. It's for everyone, whether it's AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Map 3D. It just really allows you to support things like 4K, higher resolution, and then better visual user interface that has a cohesion across all the Autodesk product lines. And then also, we'll take a look at the Civil 3D interface. And the big thing again is the ideal of standardizing. You want everything to look the same in reference to a company's organization. And then last but not least is the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS in Civil 3D. So I'm going to talk about the Autodesk connector, the data panel that comes up, and then also being able to add data, manage data, and then convert GIS data into Civil 3D objects. So we'll look at the way we've typically imported GIS data into Civil 3D, and then I'll show you some of the things you can do in reference to the new Autodesk connector for ArcGIS with Civil 3D. And from that, being able now to publish, read, write, access directly into ArcGIS Online. I'll talk about the data panel. I'll talk about publishing Civil 3D features to ArcGIS. And then also being able to export a geodatabase from Civil 3D straight into ArcGIS. And again, some of these things are a little bit more in detail, but we'll take a look at those other things. So other enhancements, exporting out Civil 3D drawing, survey database. We talked about rail, and then reference templates. And then from that, the first thing that I'm going to do is jump right into Civil 3D. And then from Civil 3D, we talked about a couple of things. So we talked about the ideal of that Dynamo extension. So from that, there's a couple of things that we want to be able to take a look at. So we talked about Dynamo, we talked about rail. So in reference to our rail creation now, specifically, we have a rail ribbon that allows us flexibility to model turnout, rail alignments, labeling, and existing turnouts. We also have the ability to create, export out from selected alignments with rail, calculated basically from cant and heavy rail standards, or from simple carriage geometry. And then from our creation tools, if I select create tools, it brings up this similar dialog box. And clearly the type of alignment that we're going to utilize would be a rail alignment opposed to a centerline alignment. So those are some of the updates in reference to our new rail features in reference to alignment. Those under the civil infrastructure typically aren't doing a lot of rail, but if you had a need for it, Civil 3D addresses rail with the rail alignments, super elevated with cant, and also parallel rail. So Dynamo extension, parallel rail. We also talked about this idea of storm and sanitary analysis. Now, if I picked on a pipe network from Civil 3D, it gives me the contextual ribbon up at the top, and it gives me the ability to analyze gravity network. It also gives me the ability to edit in storm sewer and sanitary analysis, and then also I can create an alignment from a network. So pipe profiles, analysis, drawn parts in the profile, hydroflow storm, hydroflow, hydrographs, and hydroflow express. All are located here. And if I select analyze, it gives me the ability to import storm sewers, export storm sewers, edit in storm sewers. So as an example, one of the things that we want to look at is the new functionality with storm and sanitary analysis. So from that, it brings up the interface with the storm and sanitary analysis. And I'm just going to open up a sample. We'll open up a sample SSA file, which is a .spf file. And as you can see clearly, it's just something as simple as, picking on a junction, it's giving me the information for my junction. Pick on a subbasin, it's giving me the information for my subbasin. Based upon my hydrology method, so if I came to project options, this is EPA swim. So we talked about peak rate and things like that. That's only based upon SCS and TR20, TR55. So we'll go ahead and change that to TR55. And we'll just put in a 5-minute. And the biggest difference between hydroflow extensions and SSA is hydroflow does steady flow and kinematic wave in terms of link routing. And storm and sanitary analysis does hydrodynamic also. So from that, I'm going to select OK. And some of the things that you will notice right off the back is when I pick on this subbasin, now we have a peak rate factor, which is new. And the 2020 update for Civil 3D. So that's one of the things. I'm going to come back and I'm just going to run the analysis. So I'm going to perform the analysis. I'm not going to save this file. I'm going to open that up. And as you can clearly see, there's some difference that you can see here. If I double pick on a pipe, it shows me it's going to surcharge. It shows me my design flow capacity, my peak flow during the analysis, and how long it's going to surcharge. Typically, what I would do is I would go in and make some additional changes. So if I right click on my outlet and I start my profile plot, and then I pick my junction, and then I'm going to select show plot. It shows me my profile plot. So from that, I'm just going to select output and output animation. I'm going to speed up this animation for time purposes. And then I'm going to move it to around the 7th or 8th hour. And then I'm going to select my play button. So visually being able to see analysis and simulation on the fly. From that, we can see that there is an issue with this pipe. It's too small. So we can go in and put a 24-inch pipe in. And then I'm going to close that out. And then I'm going to go right back and run my analysis. Now you can clearly see my hydraulic grade line and my energy grade line and this pipe now in terms of its defined design flow capacity and its peak flow during the analysis. So less than half in terms of its design flow capacity. Okay, so from that, we also talked about the new contact for storage chambers. And from a storage chamber, clearly we can see from this junction, it's a manhole. So I just want to convert this to a storage node. From the storage node, if I double pick on this, then it gives us the ability to use functional or a storage curve. Based upon my storage curve, I can go in and create a new storage curve. Based upon this storage curve, I can add underground chambers for my storage chambers. Based upon my storage chambers, I can go in and select my different styles. Alyssa, yes. So based upon these, we have ADS storage tech, and we also have call tech, and then we have hydraulic storm chambers. So we have some new storage chambers that we can utilize in reference to our underground, storm tech, call tech, and then our underground pipes. So we have a lot of flexibility in reference to Civil 3D 2020 in reference to our storage chambers. So I'm just going to close that out. So that's just a small piece of Civil 3D, and from that, we also can go in under project options and look at our element prototypes, and then our IDs. So these are just defaults. So from that, when I go in under analysis and under my analysis options, under my storm selection, now we have, based upon our multiple storms, we have where we can put in and add in our boundary conditions for our tailwater and our rainfall events. So just some extra things that have been added to Civil 3D in reference to Civil 3D 2020. From that, I'm going to close that. So storm and sanitary analysis. Dynamo. We looked at rail. And then for pressure pipe, just really quickly, one of the things that we want to kind of take a look at is if I draw a polyline, so I'll just draw a polyline in there. And you can clearly see it on whatever layer, under my pipe networks. We have the ability to create a pressure pipe network from an object. So when I pick on this now, it's showing me the direction, and then it's showing me some standard ductile iron in reference to, and what my network parts list is. We're going to kind of suffice with that. And then we'll say the existing ground, and then we don't have to worry about our alignment. And then we'll look at elevation reference, which allows us to specify our depth of cover. And then I'll select OK. Once I select OK, then it creates pressure pipes for me. So the beauty of working with this now is as I move this, it has the connecting pipes moved with it. And if I move it to a specific angle, it adjusts for that specific angle. Let me go back. And we're just doing a little automatic save. So again, depending on what angle, it's making the adjustments for my pipes, which is also new in Civil 3D 2020. And then there's some other things in reference to drawing pipes and profiles, things like that, that you can utilize that allow you to be more flexible and more efficient in terms of working with pipe networks. And then also the ability to create parts for pressure pipes, with pipe networks. So from that, we also talked about this idea of working with the new Analyze pipe in Civil 3D 2020. So if I go to my Analyze tab, right here you can look at and see Analyze Gravity Network. From that, if I pick Analyze Gravity Network, I'm just going to pick on it. So this pipe network is going to be my storm. And clearly you can see the storm here in reference to my pipe network. From this, it gives us different options in reference to what we want to do in reference to our pipe network. So again, in the past, what we've done with Civil 3D is we've laid out a pipe network in CAD, then pushed it to our HydroFlow extension, ran some analysis and design, then pushed it back as a storm file back into Civil 3D. Excuse me. What this new Analyze Gravity Network gives you the ability to do is analyze live right in the drawing. And we won't worry about inlet analysis. And we can see from our storm out file all the way our tailwater condition, and then rainfall data if we wanted to input or import a rainfall data file, we could do that also. Our annual exceedance probability, and then intensity table. So I'm just going to save that and run. So if you wanted to change your intensity table, you could do that also. But if I look at network details, it's kind of showing me specifically what pipe network that I'm working with. And I can map structures. And I'm just going to go back. So remember, with HydroFlow extensions, in order to get to this page, we need to export out our pipe network to be able to work on it. Unless we did it the old-fashioned way in reference to a CSV file with a spreadsheet. But we're well beyond those times, and we're a little bit more innovative in terms of what we want to be able to do to make us more efficient and more productive. We're going to select to go back one. And then I'm just going to go ahead and select Analyze. And what it does is it analyzes my velocity, performance, minimum cover, pipe diameter, structure, all that information. And then per pipe in terms of hydraulic grade line, energy grade line, my invert up and down. And then what type of structures is being utilized. And even if I wanted to push it out into a report, I could do that also. But I'm just going to go ahead and select apply. So if I wanted to, I could go in and say, well, I want a 0.5%, a 0.25% grade all the way from my beginning pipe or all the way from my outfall all the way up to the top of my last pipe. And I'll just select apply. Once I select apply, it runs the analysis, and now you can clearly see each pipe slope going all the way up. So again, time-saving performance tools that you want to utilize in Civil 3D now. And there's no import, there's no export. It's straight from the drawing in Civil 3D. And from that, clearly being able to push out a report. So pushing out a report, as you can see in the dialog box, you can push out a report. Okay, so pressure pipe networks, analyze gravity pipe networks, Dynamo extension, rail, and also now a few more enhancements. Now, those enhancements, again, with rail, again, core-based alignments, interoperability from InfoWorks, rail platform, and then also the survey database format in terms of migration. So just a couple things in reference to Civil 3D and what's new with Civil 3D. One of the big things that's new now is the idea that, and we see the dark interface. One of the big things is new that is the idea of the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS. So as a quick example, and typically what I like to do is because most people will have gone through this process. So I'm going to just create a new drawing from scratch, I think. So from this new drawing, one of the things that I can do is I'm going to go to my Windows Explorer, and as I just do a quick search, we'll dive deep down into some GIS data. So from this GIS data, I just want to be able to bring this data into Civil 3D. So I'm going to talk about what's currently being done right now as of today and what's been done 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, if I went and I use my planning and analysis, which 20 years ago, it was Map 3D, which is still Map 3D. They just have a planning and analysis workspace in reference to working with Civil 3D. Civil 3D is built on top of Map 3D and Civil and AutoCAD. So from that, on my Insert tab, one of the things that 40% of users do right now, hopefully it's less, but on the map import, to bring in a GIS file like parcels or a road, they would select this shape file based upon the file format, Esri shapefile, and then from that, open it up. And then you would go through this tedious process of selecting the input layer, drawing layer, object class, coordinate system already, and then the data that you want to create based upon the GIS file. And it would come in as a GIS file, which is no big deal. We're familiar with that. This is the old school way of bringing in map data. What this does is this increases the size of your drawing dramatically when you bring this data in. That's the first way. I'm not going to bring this data in because I just wanted to be able to show that workflow. I'm going to cancel that. Today, what most users should be able or should be doing in terms of working with data is, let's say I got parcels, which is the same shapefile. I just pick it, drag it, and drop it right into my screen. From that, I have all the parcels from this small municipality just by dragging and dropping. If I pick on Windows Explorer again, I just drop the roads in there. Something real straight and simple. This is one of the ways that people currently should be using. I'll throw water lines in there. Currently should be working with shapefiles. And then we'll show some of the updated water lines. So we got some updated water lines. We got current water lines. We have some roads, and we have parcels. I'm going to jump back to my Civil 3D workspace. And I am being very aware and cognizant of your time. So we're moving pretty good. So from Civil 3D, on the Home tab, one of the nice things you can do, and you can type it in also in the command line, but if I just open up my map workspace, it's going to show me the GIS data that has been pulled into Civil 3D. Roads, water lines. If I picked on parcels, one of the nice things you can do with Map 3D, Civil 3D, is stylize these parcels. If I went in, I can create a new theme, and based upon the attribute data that comes over with the GIS file, I can theme land value or zoning or soils group in reference to my GIS shapefile. And when I do that, then it just automatically does it. So pretty straightforward. As I move it around, all the data is being read from my hard drive, my server, in reference to this data being displayed. But if I wanted to, I can just go right here and select table. And it brings in all that data in reference to. And if I double pick one time on Fig Tree Lane, I'll double pick on it. It takes me to that parcel right at Fig Tree Lane. I can run filters and I can do a lot of different things in reference to working with map. Someone says, well, I don't want to bring in all those parcels. I just want to bring in, the area where we're doing the new water line and we're going to update the current water line. So now I can come here on the parcels, right click and say, well, I want to run a query. From this query, I'm going to use a rectangle to define the area for my project limits. And if I pick that from my parcels and I select OK, then now I no longer have parcels outside of that area. And I can do that for water lines and the roads also. I mean, the beauty of drag and drop with Civil 3D and Map 3D is everything is georeferenced based upon the projection file that comes with that shape file. So I'll just go map aerial just to take a look and see what we have. So being able to really quickly create this concept map, pretty straightforward, using the correct workflows. And then I'll cut that map aerial off, and there's my quick concept map. Of course, we're going to put a lot more detail in there, but as a start, this works wonders in terms of creating a quick concept, in terms of location, information, GIS data. So this is currently how we're probably using GIS data. For those who are from the old school with GIS data, it was a nightmare to create a surface from GIS data. We can create a surface from GIS data seamlessly with Civil 3D now. So one of the new features in 2020 is the idea of working with ArcGIS. So what is ArcGIS Online? So if I just pick on internet right here and I'll say ArcGIS Online. I'll just go here to the login. I'll sign into ArcGIS Online. I'll put in my username and I'll put in my password and I'll just sign into ArcGIS Online. So ArcGIS Online allows valuable simulation with analysis, utility layers, all different layers in terms of working with GIS. A lot of governments use web mapping services to kind of have the public come in and utilize web mapping services. So if I came here straight to this web map for Cuyahoga Falls, and if I select Ohio here and just say map, I can pick on that and it shows me information of a map that's been created. And then if I open up in Map Viewer, it kind of shows me a map, a specific area. I can drag in and drop in GIS data in reference to storm and center lines. I can run analysis. From my analysis, I can summarize. I can say, all right, show me all the intersections in the city that's had more than 5 accidents in the last 2 years. I can say at all my bus stops, show me how far a person can walk in 5 miles and show me all the overlapping bus stops. Maybe I want to add a location for a furniture or a clothing store. I can run all these analysis in terms of working from ArcGIS. Even if I wanted to change my base map, I can do aerial, I can do streets in terms of my base map. I mean, I can do seamless topo, terrain, National Geographic, open street maps in reference to displaying and creating a story that I want to push out. So that's what ArcGIS is. And there's a lot more in terms of analyzing and data enrichment and finding hotspots and soils groups and earthquake and calculating distance and interpolating. There's a lot you can do with ArcGIS. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to come back here to Civil 3D. So I'm just going to create a new drawing. And from this new drawing, I'm going to give it a, not with the map task pane open. I'm going to close that and I'm going to bring up my tool space. So on my settings tab, I'm going to right click and select edit settings, drawing settings. So I want to give this drawing a coordinate system. And it's important that you give this drawing a coordinate system so any collaboration outside of Civil 3D or another product will be able to recognize where this is. So I'm just going to do a state plane coordinates and we're going to say Ohio, North US foot. So it gives me that state plane coordinate. And then the beauty of that is, where does ArcGIS come into play here? Well, if you go to the Insert tab, there's a Autodesk connector for ArcGIS. So once I select that, then I can come in and it brings me this Autodesk connector for ArcGIS. So similarly to what I just did with ArcGIS Online, I am doing with the dynamic link with Civil 3D. So I'm just going to select Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. And then I'm just going to zoom right into here, into this little area where Graham Road is. The reason why I'm picking this area is because I know specifically the county tax map office and the county engineer has all the GIS data that you could ask for. So I'm just going to define my area of interest, which is going to be right here. And once I define my area of interest, then ArcGIS automatically publicly tries to find me all the data, GIS information that I can bring into my Civil 3D drawing. Because I have content already stored, I'll just pick my map. I can have an organization where I can say, well, I only want to send specifically some data to specific users or to a specific group that I want to be able to access that data. I can give them read and write access based upon individual users. If I come back to my content, I'm just going to select my map. So based upon my map from ArcGIS Online that I could create, I'm going to go in and I'm going to deselect a few of these. And we won't get too crazy here. For road center lines, I definitely want that to come in. I want that to come in as an alignment. And then for my pipe, I want that to come in as a pipe. And let me just move this here a little bit. And for screen size purposes, let's move this right here. And the storm node, we'll pick on here. We'll scroll down and let's come back up here. So intersection, subbasins, traffic, storm mains. So if we pick on storm mains, they give us the option for gravity pipes. We won't worry about pond. As an example, I am going to do something really quick here. As an example, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can see what I have on here. And I just moved that over a little bit. And we'll come up. So storm nodes, and we have some pipes. The pipes are going to be used as feature lines. And the storm nodes are going to be used as let me move this up a little bit. So from that, down here at the bottom, from these layers that I selected, I can move those straight into Civil 3D. So let me just make this a little bit smaller here so I can see down here. And we're just going to hit tab here. So just as a quick example here, let me move this. So it is 1:23, so we still have a moment. We're going to minimize that. I'll minimize a few things here because I want you guys to be able to see this. I'm just going to make this display setting just a little bit smaller here in terms of what we want to be able to see. So we'll bring this down. And we're going to go up to something really small so I can just make sure you guys see this. And we'll bring that back over. So from that, we're going to close this layer manager. And I'm going to go right back to where I started from. So it brings ArcGIS back up. It just brought it up on this side. And then I'm going to select the same area. And from that area, I'm just going to zoom in and select the same area. So no big deal. We're still good with time. And as you can see down here at the bottom, it allows me to add to my project data. So whether I'm from a group or an organization, I can add these layers to my project data. So it's 11 selected, and I'm just going to deselect, and I'm going to go through each one so we can kind of see. We don't need pond, we don't need intersection. Road center lines, that's going to be alignments. Storm mains, that's going to be gravity pipes. And then that pipe, we're going to keep as a gravity pipe in terms of bringing that in. And then my storm node, I'm going to have as a structure. So I've got, excuse me, 4 layers that I want to bring in. Then I'll just add to my design project. And then it works this little magic. Then it shows me the schema mapping. Now, where does schema come from? Schema comes from Esri in terms of creating tables for attributed data. So we can see structures, gravity pipe, storm pipes. I can go in here and export and save that. I'm just going to select OK. So it imports that GIS data. Remember to drag and drop. It imports that GIS data, and then it creates structures based upon that GIS data. It creates pipes based upon that GIS data. It creates alignments based upon the GIS data. So if you think about what I just said, everything that you do in terms of dragging and dropping and map import brings in a map object. And then you have to draw over it again to create the actual data. With the Autodesk connector for ArcGIS, once I create that and bring that in, we'll just take a quick look. I have an actual storm structure. And when I pick on the storm structure, it's an actual Civil 3D object. So I'll pick on that pipe, I'll right click, select similar, and go into Object Viewer. Now think about how much time. So again, one of the things that we want to get away from with the innovation in terms of new technology is get away from these inefficient ways of doing things. So now if I move this up, here's my whole storm network. So imagine you have a whole city of GIS data. Here's all of it in Civil 3D now, storm networks. Not only that, clearly being able to publish and work with surfaces with Civil 3D. If I pick on one of my center lines, it's a horizontal alignment. Based upon that horizontal alignment, now I can do a profile. I can create a finished grade. I can start thinking about corridor modeling for my road design. So again, a lot of enhancements with the new Civil 3D 2020. And if I pick on my geolocation, not to minimize this, but everything is still georeferenced. Why is that important? Because I want to push data back out. And if I push data back out, I can look at my data source. I can see that everything's mapped. Data that came in from GIS has been created into Civil 3D objects. And I can save back. So not only do I have a live link to ArcGIS Online, every edit that I make, it's automatically being saved real-time live to ArcGIS Online. So again, the value in terms of working with these new enhancements really allow you to bridge the gap between what used to be with GIS and CAD. Now you have a seamless and live link and connection with BIM in reference to Civil 3D and InfraWorks and ArcGIS Online. So hopefully this webcast has been insightful in terms of some of the things that you do and some of the things that you would want to do and some of the places that you would want to go with the new technology.